Hello YouTube, how's it going? Andy here. For the Christmas holiday, I went back home to visit my family. On the way back, I asked myself while I was at the airport, how would a song sound if I recorded it entirely on the flight? My flight back to London was roughly 1 hour and 45 minutes. So I decided to use that time to record a whole song on my tablet, as you can see here. As I did many times before, I used Cubasis 3 from Steinberg on my tablet, and I also used some Bluetooth earbuds, which were rather challenging. As a matter of fact, I've made a few mistakes due to the fact that I couldn't hear myself properly on the airplane, as I lost my good earbuds and I had to buy new earbuds at the airport. And they weren't the best earbuds I've ever used. Nonetheless, I didn't lose motivation, and as soon as the airplane took off, I started recording. These were the only two items I used. I didn't want to disturb the peace of other people on the flight. Therefore, I didn't record any sound. Without further ado, let's get to it. The first thing I did was naming the track, and I decided to call it Flying Back Home as I thought it would fit the project idea. Come up with something that was 4 bars long, and then sort of repeat it. I was having some trouble trying to use the touchscreen, and eventually, as soon as I managed to fix it, the first thing I did was figuring out a bass line. The reason why I figured out the bass line first is because that will give me the root notes, and from there I could figure out the chords. I decided to compose this track in D minor, and I tried different chord progressions. So the idea was I tried to figure out the chord progression 4 bars at a time. So I figured out the first 4 bars and then the remaining 4 bars. And I made sure that the last 4 bars would follow the first 4 bars. And that's how I came up with the 8 bars chord progression. After figuring out the chords, I tried to figure out the tempo of the song. And I also opted to stay in 4/4 as I had a big time restriction and I didn't want to waste any time trying to figure out unnecessary things. I decided to lay down the notes on the piano roll instead of recording myself playing them. The reason why is because I had problem with latency with my earbuds. After having tried different options, I decided to go for this chord progression. D minor, B flat, D minor, A major, D minor, B flat, F major, A7. A major and A7 are not in the D minor key. As a matter of fact, in the key of D minor, we have A minor and A minor 7. However, if we use the harmonic minor scale instead of the natural minor scale, we end up having an A major and A7. It's very common to change the fifth chord of a minor key from minor to major when resolving to the first chord of the key. Doing this adds a nice color to the song and makes it way more interesting. I also tried to incorporate a chromatic median chord progression, but I didn't like the sound of it, so I decided to opt out that option. After I was done with the main chord progression, I started looking for the best piano sound I had in my sound library. To add more body and character to the sound, I decided to go for an ostinato melody played by a synthesizer. It's also worth mentioning that I didn't figure out the final chord progression right at the beginning. I worked on it throughout the whole song, as sometimes I thought that different chords will sound better. After I was done with that, the intro of the song was complete. Eventually I decided to split the piano in 2 different piano tracks. One that only contained the piano sound and the other one that contained piano and strings. I felt that gave a nicer sound to it, so that's why I went for it. After the intro, I worked on the main section of the song. I kept the same chord progression and I also kept the same ostinato, and I added a bass line and the drums to it. And I decided to use a brass sound for the melody. The way I work on a melody is pretty straightforward. I first sing or hum the melody, And then I try to figure out the notes and write it down. Simple as that. So after all of this work, this is what we ended up with. All of this was done in roughly 1 hour, as I was having trouble using the touchscreen of my tablet for some reason. I only had roughly 45 minutes left, which made me panic, as I didn't know if I was gonna finish this. But I tried to stay calm and worked on it. This time, I slightly changed the melody and I decided to add a string ensemble. As I mentioned earlier, the quality of the earbuds I was using was quite poor. Because of this, I didn't notice that I made a mistake on the F major while working on the string ensemble, and I notice only when I go home. Bear this in mind as soon as I show you the final result of my work, because as soon as I go home, I fixed that mistake right away. The way I worked on the string ensemble was quite simple. I gave the first violins 2 notes of each chord and made them bounce between them. Then I let the second violins harmonize and they played the same thing as the first violins, just a fourth below. Violas, cellos, and double basses played 1 note of the chord each. Double basses and cellos were an octave apart, and they were both playing the root note of each chord. Whereas the violas, like the first violins and the second violins, were following the voice leading. Therefore, sometimes they were playing the root, sometimes they were playing the third, and sometimes they were playing the fifth. It all depended on which chords came before. I think I made a mistake with cellos and double basses. They were playing 16th notes, and I think it was too much, as they lost a lot of definition. Thinking back, I should have probably assigned them some quarter notes instead of 16th notes. But I wasn't thinking straight, as I was a bit in a hurry. As I had a few minutes to spare, I decided to add a middle 8 section. Doing this allowed me to make the song less repetitive and less boring. I decided to end the song with a 5-bar outro that was played by the piano and the piano track that included also the strings. And this is the result. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the final result. Hope you enjoy. All considered, I'm quite pleased with the result of this song. Yes, it's true, I had to change the sound of the string ensemble, but I don't mind as I only had 1 hour and 45 minutes and the earbuds I was using were abysmal. If you like the result, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and drop a comment in the comment section below to help with the algorithm. I shall see you next time. Peace.